Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us today here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, the financial advisors and the father-son team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find out more about them, the entire team, over on the website. That is welcomehomefp.com. You can also give a call, 804-635-3550. If you have questions about things we talk about this week on the show, you want a second opinion on your retirement picture, your retirement plan as it stands. If you want a first opinion, you want to go ahead and get that plan started, that retirement roadmap, that is the number again, 804-635-3550 for a complimentary conversation. Stop into any one of their 3 locations here in the Richmond area. My name is Chris Swan. I'm pleased to be joined, as I am every show, with Ralph and Tim. Gentlemen, it's good to see you again. How you doing today?
Doing well. How about you?
Doing great.
Doing well, Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners here as they get ready to embark on this next great chapter known as retirement. So many people think about it as, the end of the road. That's not the case. It's the start of the next great journey, and that's where the retirement roadmap comes in handy. Help them map out how to get to where they want to be. So appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule. Do you remember when you were a kid and someone put you in a headlock and demanded, say, uncle? Perhaps, Ralph, you were the one putting people in headlocks. I'm not entirely sure, but many people approaching retirement, they feel the same way. Your work, your salary, your health benefits, they've all got this grip on you, and then you wonder when you should say uncle. So when you meet with new clients, prospective clients, when they come in, what is the moment like where they feel comfortable to let go of their work life and move into retirement?
I think for most people, it's when they can see and they can visualize and they know that, hey, we're going to be okay. Because there's so many different things that are they're waiting and not waiting for retirees in retirement. And one of those things is where their paycheck's going to come from. And while you're working, most people aren't really anticipating that, right? Because they know, hey, if I show up to work, I'm doing my job, and going home, they know that they should be receiving a paycheck, right? Once we get into retirement, things look a lot different. And a lot of people, I hate to say it this way, but there's a lot of people that don't necessarily start planning until they are super close to the exit, right?
Right.
But I think many people approaching retirement feel emotionally tied to their paycheck and benefits in their daily routine. And once they get to retirement, things are going to stop. So that's why we do this retirement roadmap, so people can visualize what things are going to look like. So you have a good idea of what to expect, because like you said, Chris, this isn't the end. This is just start of another chapter, and you want to feel comfortable in doing that. But I know Dad will tell you the same thing is, when people can see that they can financially retire, you can see the weight on their shoulders be go, right? And I think it's important, we've got to make sure that the financial picture's in front of them, because if you don't, things might not work the way that you want, but you've got to be realistic. And I think there's a lot of people out there that haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to, how should I say this politely, bad spending habits. And some of those things might have to change. Lifestyle might have to change, because everybody's goals are going to be different. One of the biggest retirement planning mistakes that we see is in underestimating impact of taxes and spending. And, if you walk out of the door today and the next few months or maybe a couple of years of retirement are bad, and we've got everything into the stock market, well, guess what your retirement's going to be? Probably going to be bad.
And I would say to most hardworking Americans, there is no such thing as a perfect time to retire. It's when you're ready. And what I mean by that, do you know where your income's coming from? Like Tim was talking about, where is your paycheck coming from? Yeah, unless you have a written plan, you really can't visualize what it's going to be. And that's why we do our retirement roadmap. Some people really think they've got it made, and all of a sudden they take a look at it in black and white, and they're like, oh, I'm not as good as I thought I was, so how can we improve it? So that's one of the things that we take pride in, what we try to do for people. And the thing that a lot of people need to understand, what is your retirement going to look like for you? And what I mean by that, do you want to spend more time with your family, enjoy the things that you wanted to do and plan for all your life, and have in peace of mind? Or do you want to sit there and worry about the next big headline that's going to destroy your retirement plan because the market just dropped? If you're having to worry about every red flag that comes up across the TV, I don't believe that most people would have that an enjoyable retirement. Would you, Chris?
No, not at all. And as you said, there's always going to be a reason to hesitate on retirement planning. There's always going to be some condition, something overseas, something locally, to give you a little bit of pause and say, maybe not right now. Out of curiosity, though, have there ever been situations where people have come in and sat down with you, and then you guys run the numbers and go, yeah, you're in great shape, where, they might say to themselves, I wish I should have come in to see you guys sooner because I could have, laid these fears to bed a couple years ago. Does that ever happen?
A lot of times that's going to happen because most people's never seen what their retirement is going to look like.
Right.
A lot of people will come in and say, I know I've got enough money because it's at a certain amount that they've been told they needed to have. But all of a sudden, when they take a look at how they're spending, and some of it's probably going to be a little bit frivolous because that's just the way we do some things.
Sure.
So you kind of have to adjust that. But I think most people need to understand what that retirement income plan is going to look like. Do you need any extra money from your Social Security or your pension to meet your bills, do the things that you want to do? Now, a lot of people, they've got it planned out that they're in pretty good shape, and they are, and that's a good thing. It's just verifying what they've done. But there are a lot of people out there that have no clue as to what their retirement is going to look like. And that's one of the things that we sit down and let people see.
Because they haven't put pen to paper yet, they can be intimidated by the prospect of retiring. Where are these paychecks going to come from? I've saved all this money. How do I turn that into income? That is what the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners is here for, to help you create those retirement accounts, those retirement dreams, create that retirement plan. So you may find out when you come in that you're in great shape, that you're in better shape. You could have retired, a little earlier. You may find out that you can retire on your terms according to plan. You may find out that there is a little bit of work that needs to be done. That is the truth. That does happen. But by coming in and sitting down and speaking with them, you now know what those steps are and how to get back on track to where you want to be to reach that destination of retirement. That is where that roadmap comes into play. We're all starting in different locations, but the goal is ideally the same. And it starts with setting up a time to speak with Ralph and Tim Short, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can go to welcomehomefp.com to do so. You can give a call as well. Schedule that complimentary time, 804-635-3550. Now, I'm sure a lot of us would like to think that we're going to handle the next market downturn better than the last one, whenever that does happen. But Morgan Housel, the author of The Psychology of Money, says, honestly, that may not happen.
You cannot read a paper or look at a spreadsheet and change the amount of dopamine and cortisol in your brain. You can't do it. I think the best that we can do as individuals is look at our own personal financial past and realize that that is probably how we're going to roughly behave in the future. If you are the kind of person who panicked out of your stocks in 2008 or March of 2020, you are probably going to do it the next time. A lot of the evidence shows that we will not learn from these mistakes because it's easy to underestimate how quickly the emotions will come rushing back during the next surprise, during the next crisis.
So basically, he's saying you can't rationalize your way into better behavior when things get scary. Is that something that you guys have seen, with people when they first begin to retire and then the first, market pullback happens? How should somebody think about their risk tolerance as they get closer to retirement?
Well, I think most people need to start throttling back on some of that risk because, people get a lot more emotional because they know they're going to need the money. And I agree. I think a lot of times that investor behavior often matters more than actual investment knowledge. And if you are repeating the same trends or same bad habits, if you will, it's not going to work out. And, one of the biggest questions we get is, when's the right time? We already kind of talked about the right time to retire, but it's not necessarily that, but people are trying to time the market. And that's where things get rough, right? So I think it's very important that people stop making poor decisions. And if you've got a good, sound retirement plan, then things will look a little bit easier for you. Because if hey, maybe we don't have all of our money exposed to the stock market. So when things are down, maybe all of our money is not losing money. But, when we talk to folks about that, they think, well, if I protect my money, I don't earn any money. Well, if you're going to put it into a money market account that's getting you 0.3%, sure. But there are ways of doing different things and still participating in some of the gains. So I think, for the most part, as people are approaching retirement, they tend to be a little bit worse off because they know they're probably going to need that money. And you're a lot easier at the age of 20. I know we say 20-year-olds quite a bit, but when the market's not going well, a 20-year-old is going to survive a little bit better than somebody in their 60s or 70s because they're not going to be touching it.
Yeah, and I would say that, building wealth for your retirement years isn't always about picking the right investment. And what I mean by that is really controlling your emotion like we're talking about. But I think the biggest thing that a lot of people are doing right now is this. They are, their biggest financial mistake is probably trying to follow the crowd. They listen to somebody, what's hot. They follow that information. A lot of the headlines, they make decisions on that. But, you know, everybody's a little different of what they're trying to accomplish. So why are you going to turn to your neighbor who's may be retiring in 10 years later than you are, and they have the same investment and you want the same investments as they do? It doesn't make a lot of sense, but there's a lot of water cooler talk among the clients when they come in about, well, so-and-so told me to do this and so-and-so told me to do that, which is the right answer. I'm like, well, how do you know what the right answer is unless we sit down and have a conversation about what your end goal is? And that's the whole thing about the retirement roadmap. As fiduciaries, we got to understand exactly what it is that your goal is so we can help you get there. You know, peace of mind in retirement doesn't come from watching the market every day. At least it wouldn't be for me. It comes from knowing that you've got a plan in place that you don't have to worry about every day. Yes, you're going to keep a check on it. We all do that. But let's not have any type of knee-jerk reaction, because guess what? You worked all your life to retire, and now you're going to not enjoy it. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
At a smaller scale, here we are, summer upon us. My son has had an idea of what he wants to do, and we've made plans around how we're going to spend the first couple of days of summer. Spoiler, it's going to cost a good bit more money than it did during the normal week. And that's the case when it comes to retirement. Those go-go years, you may be spending more. You may be doing the things that you've dreamed of, going on vacation, spending more time with the grandkids, playing golf in all 50 states, whatever it may be. You want to have that plan put into place. You don't want to jeopardize your retirement. You don't want to compound these withdrawals with market downturns. So understanding that over the course of your retirement, the 20, 30 years, there are going to be market pullbacks, and make sure that you're properly equipped to do so. That is where that retirement roadmap comes into play, understanding there will be detours on the trip through retirement. But how do we get back on track? How do we make sure it doesn't divert us so far off that the whole plan falls apart? That's what the fiduciaries, Ralph and Tim Short, they're here for, to create a plan that they believe will work in the client's best interest. And so having that conversation with them is as simple as going to the website, setting up a time, welcomehomefp.com. You can find out more about them, the first Friday events they have going on, how to attend those, and meet them in a more informal setting, welcomehomefp.com. Or you can give a call as well, 804-635-3550. Simone Biles may be the most decorated gymnast of all time, but she wasn't prepared for the bill she got after one night out. She posted a video that revealed what she paid for hair, makeup, and styling at a red carpet event, which was a jaw-dropping $22,000. Simone understands that prices have gone up, but even she needed a gut check on there. What she's describing, it actually has a name, lifestyle creep. Obviously, that is an extreme example. I don't think a lot of our listeners out there, Ralph, Tim, I don't think you're going to be dropping $22,000 on a red carpet event. But have you seen lifestyle creep sneak up on your retired clients in ways that can still derail a retirement plan?
Yeah, I mean, we're all kind of victim of it to a point. And, lifestyle creep often sneaks up slowly because spending increases rarely happen all at the same time, right? And I think, in retirement, whatever you want to do is going to cost you some money, right? Whether it's hobbies, traveling, dining out, entertainment, they all can gradually shift from occasional expenses. And that's why, when we start talking to folks about setting that budget, what does it look like? Because nowadays, a lot of people just put something on a credit card, and hopefully, smartly, they're paying that off every month.
Right.
But they're not necessarily paying attention to, they see what the numbers look like, but they don't see where it's coming from, what the expenses actually were. And I think that's good and bad, because if you don't have a good handle of, hey, I went out to eat 3 nights this week, that cost me $1,000 or whatever, it's going to be hard to kind of change that. Those spending habits. But, there's a difference between permanent habits and, once in a lifetime opportunities. So that's why I think it is very important for retirees to really have a good handle on what they're spending, what is a need and what is a want. And that is something that a lot of people have a hard time determining, because yes, everything that we're spending money on, we say we want or we need, but in all reality, it's just a want.
And I would say a lot of people say, but it's just a one-time splurge. I don't have to do this all the time. And all of a sudden it becomes a habit. And that's when you really get into trouble, because when it becomes a habit, it can really put pressure on your retirement nest egg. And the danger isn't enjoying the retirement that you got, that you work so hard with. It's really spending without a plan, because all of a sudden you're waking up years later and wondering where all your money went. That's the big issue for a lot of people. Successful retirement isn't about never spending money.
Mm-hmm.
It's about balancing enjoying today without destroying your future self, because you're still going to have money no matter what your age is. You're going to need money.
Right.
So you got to make sure that you don't run out of it. And that is one thing that most people are afraid of, but they don't know if they will or not unless they have a written plan down that they can actually take a look at and visit it every once in a while just to make sure. Because, if you spent $20,000 on that dress to go to so-and-so's place, if you do that every month, you're going to have probably a pretty bad retirement unless you've got millions and millions of dollars.
The options are, having a large nest egg to pull from, or having a very short retirement. And I know one of those is not ideal, and one of those is kind of harder to achieve. But understanding that life will cost money, and that life at 20 years from now is probably going to cost a little bit more money. It is one thing to have income for life coming in, but income for lifestyle also a major factor. And with a properly structured plan, you can take that into account, which includes a balance between growth and preservation. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but it comes down to that plan, that retirement roadmap that the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners crafts for each and every one of their clients, a customized retirement roadmap, because no one's retirement is going to be the same. So get started with that, to have a second set of eyes on your plan, reassessing it, or maybe developing that plan from the ground up. 804-635-3550 is how you do that. Talking about the market, some describe what's happening right now as being in a melt up, which is when stocks keep climbing, fueled by investor FOMO. I think we're all aware of that fear of missing out. And historically, that kind of run-up can sometimes be followed by a sharp pullback. But financial advisor Ryan Lynch tells Fox Business, honestly, he's still pretty bullish about the whole thing.
We've had geopolitics whipsawing the market back and forth. We've been in this cycle for a few months now. What we've been trying to do is reposition, trimming some winners that we've had long-time risers in, and trying to put some shock absorbers in, where we're getting equity exposure still with an upside multiple, but building downside protection. We still think that there's a lot of growth in this market.
And nobody wants to kill the goose that's laying the golden egg. The growth potential of the market can't be denied, but he did use the word protection in there. So here's the question. Are you building that, or are people building that into their retirement plans right now, just in case there is that market pullback?
Well, I think it's kind of funny because, it's working until it doesn't work.
Right.
So that's why you build plans in that manner. And protection in retirement does not mean avoiding the market altogether, right? And I know I just said it a little bit ago is, a lot of people, if we say, hey, maybe we need to start leaning a little bit more as far as protection and protected growth routes are concerned, people are like, oh, okay, well, we're going to use a CD, or we're going to use something in the banking system. And that's the issue is, yeah, a few years ago, you might have got 5 or maybe 6% if you were lucky, out of a glorified money market account. But now we're back to reality of 2 or 3%, maybe a little bit more. But the problem with that is, if inflation's at 4% and you're making 3%, guess what? You're not making anything, right? You're not even outpacing the inflation. So, I think that's the thing is, sure, are things, is the FOMO, I love that acronym, is that getting in the way? Sure. And I think a lot of people do believe that the market is overvalued and overpriced. And ultimately, this thing will come down, but it's when does that happen, and how bad does it last, or how bad will it be, and how long is it going to last? And that's the thing is, we don't know, right? This guy could, hit the nail right on the head, but we don't know until we get there. So I think that's the big thing to take away is that, okay, yeah, hopefully we have some good times ahead. I don't think anybody's rooting for the market to be bad, right? Nobody wants to lose money. So I think it's important to point out that, as we're getting into that, what we call that retirement red zone, and we're, a year, 3 years, maybe 5 years, maybe even 10 years away from retirement, we need to start thinking about these things because once again, I'm going to pick on the 20-year-old. The 20-year-old has got time, right? If you're looking to retire in the near future and things don't go well, you probably are not going to retire. Or worse than that is you're not going to retire the way that you like. And I don't think anybody wants to work for so long and put in all the blood, sweat, and tears just to now live a quiet retirement life, and they're not doing anything. Everybody has things that they want to do and accomplish in retirement, and that's why you've got to mix in some of that protection, because once again, we don't know where the market's going to head. And now more than ever, every day is something different, right? If something good is said, market will perform well. Something bad or something real, things change constantly. So that's why we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So let's make sure that we've got some protection built in there.
It's easy to say that a plan works if there are no challenges presented. If everything goes as it is right now, you're good to go. But here's the thing. Talk about Ralph and Tim being fiduciaries acting in the client's best interest. They would not be acting in the client's best interest if they did not take into account the fact that over the course of a 15, 20, 30-year market, there's not just going to be one market pullback. There's probably going to be several in there. Make sure that people are equipped to be able to withstand those, and then the next one, and then not have their retirement as a whole jeopardized. So how much should you have in the market? Somewhere more than zero, somewhere less than 100. That's a very wide window, I understand, but it's going to vary from person to person. Sitting down, having that conversation, having that customized plan, that customized retirement roadmap put together for you with the fiduciaries, Ralph and Tim Short, and the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. Go to welcomehomefp.com to find out more and schedule that time, or give a call at 804-635-3550. The fifth longest winning streak in Jeopardy history is now officially in the books. After 31 consecutive victories, Jamie Ding took home $880,000 in prizes, well, before taxes. What is he doing with that money? Part of it's going to charity, very noble. The rest going into a high-yield savings account. Is that a good move? If a solid retirement plan is built on diversification, as you were talking about there, Ralph, should a windfall get folded into that plan, or should it be treated like something separate?
Well, it's very important, because once again, if you just stick it into a high yield savings account, well, we know you're not going to generate a whole lot out of that, right?
Right.
But why do you ever want to stick all your eggs into one basket? So I know I'm not going to win Jeopardy anytime soon and bring home $800K, but I think if you've got a windfall such as an inheritance, and that's a good point to bring up. And, when it comes to like an inheritance, which is usually what windfalls people will fall into, taxation is going to be different for all of it, right? So there's been a lot of rule changes, and a lot of people aren't aware. And the issue being is when things are changed and rules are changed, if you're not up to speed on those issues, well, then you're going to be facing some penalties. So, you don't want to stick all of your eggs into one basket, but we can't plan for that. A lot of people don't know, what their inheritance potentially could be. Most people don't have those conversations, but I think that's very important conversation to have, specifically with clients who want to leave, their kids or grandkids money, is kind of give them a little bit of a heads up. Maybe not give them the dollar amount if you're worried about them pushing you down the steps or what have you. But, I think having that conversation, but also too, is making that introduction. I mean, how many times we bring in our clients and say, hey, we know we have these beneficiaries on these accounts. We'll bring them to one of our events. Let's meet them, so they know who they're going to be with and meeting with when something happens. And it makes it a little bit easier that way too. So yeah, with the windfalls, you don't want to stick everything into one basket. You got to be mindful of taxes, but you also have to know what the tax qualifications are.
And I would say not only is it a financial windfall for you, but it's also, if you do it the improper way, it's also going to be a huge windfall for Uncle Sam, because depending upon what it is, he's going to take a big portion of what it is that you've got. Now, whether it's an inheritance, whether it's a business sale, property sale, or any type of continuing payout, I mean, those are some situations that most people, the first mistake they make is moving too fast and making decisions on what to do with that money without thinking about long-term effects for you. Because I think the biggest issue for most people, they don't want this windfall to help them for the next 2 or 3 years. I would assume, Chris, that most people would want to help them for the rest of their lives. Would you not say that?
Oh, no, I would assume so. They wanted that to think big picture, and that's really what it's all about in retirement. It's not just thinking about the immediacy. Obviously, that is a factor, but thinking about the 15, 20, 30 years, ideally, as long as possible in retirement, making sure that you've got income coming in, because at the end of the day, those retirement accounts that you've been saving money away in, that's not the retirement plan. And those retirement plans have to have that income component into it. So, whether that is a windfall, whether that is, a pay raise, things of that nature, figuring out how that works into your plan, figuring out how you get that diversification to have those multiple income streams is a great way to ensure that your retirement can be what you've envisioned it, what you've hoped for. WelcomeHomeFP.com is the website to set up a time to speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, start crafting that plan, maintaining that plan, And again, having that second set of eyes or first set of eyes, welcomehomefp.com, or give a call at 804-635-3550. Now, you may see a friend, a relative, a coworker retire, and, they seem to be doing great. So you might wonder how they're doing it. Well, an article by GoBankingRates.com said they probably did these 4 things. 1, they saved aggressively. 2, they focused on income streams. 3, they thought out their risk level. 4, they planned for unexpected expenses. All things that we've talked about this week on the show. So, gentlemen, what do you think of this list? Is there anything else that you think they should add to it?
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit that you can add to it, but I think one of the biggest things that's often overlooked is being consistent, right? We talked about earlier about making irrational decisions. Well, if you're setting up a plan, now don't get me wrong, life will throw you curveballs and you always have to be flexible to be able to pivot. But if you're not being consistent and all of a sudden, we've bought into XYZ fund and now things are going down, and depending on what news station you're watching, they could be making you a little bit more anxious, and then you start getting out. So that's why I think it's important to stay consistent. A lot of people don't do that, but what we find out is that when people have, that financial advisor having that team behind them, they're a lot more likely to stay the course. And it's always nice to have a team behind you. So you're not just relying on you. If you make a mistake, then who's going to hold you accountable? So I think that relationship is very important.
And I think a lot of people will take a look at somebody maybe retiring earlier than you did, that it looks easy, but what you don't understand is you look behind the curtain. How many years have they planned for this? How many years have they been saving? All the sacrifices and all the smart decisions financially that they made, or maybe unsmart, let's put it that way. Those are things that people need to understand, that planning for retirement. And we had clients came in one day and said, it's easier to save money while I'm working than it is to think about how to spend all this money in retirement, because it is a process. And I said, yeah, it is a process. It's not something that you click your fingers and you say you're retired at that point in time. It's not a race for who's going to retire first. That's not what retirement's all about. It's about all those dreams that you have. How can you support that lifestyle you dreamed of?
Again, it comes down to keeping up with the Joneses. And here's the thing. Don't hold yourself up against, what your neighbors are doing or what your friends are doing, because their retirement plans, how they started, it's going to vary, I would dare say, differently from what your plans are, what you and your spouse have envisioned, what you want to achieve in retirement. And so using their plan is not going to be the best case. We talked about water cooler talk a little earlier, and here's the thing. No one talks about the missteps that they made, in the market, typically at the water cooler. I lost $10,000. I lost X, Y, and Z. They're not bragging about that. They're bragging about, the victories, but there's a lot of challenges that went on behind the scenes, I dare say. So having a plan that is suited for you, your race that you're running, your own customized retirement roadmap, because at the end of the day, that's what matters the most, your retirement. How are you going to get there? How are you going to continue to enjoy it? Well, having that customized roadmap put together for you. 804-635-3550 is that next step. Joining us here on the show this week is the first step. The next step is letting Ralph and Tim Short create that plan for you. 804-635-3550. Or you can go to the website as well, set up a time at welcomehomefp.com. As always, want to thank you for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Really do appreciate you joining us this week, taking the time to spend with us. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Hope you stay safe out there. Take the time, go ahead and get on their calendar. Gentlemen, appreciate the time as always. As we wrap up here, I do want to leave you with the final word.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, now we've definitely gotten into the summer season, which is going to be vacation season, right? We've gotten past Memorial Day weekend, so now we're officially in the summer. I know weather-wise not, because we never know what the weather's going to bring. Right. But, there's so many people out there that spend so much time planning, the vacations in the summer, and they don't take, a couple of hours to plan out their entire retirement life. And I think that's very important. There's usually a little bit of downtime in the summer. So now more than ever, give us a call. We'd love the opportunity to bring you into the office. We'll create your very own retirement roadmap just for you. So to help you visualize your overall retirement. Once again, we want to thank you guys for listening, and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.